Sign it. Sign it now, or I swear to God, I'll have security drag you out of this building. The lawyer's voice echoed to the glass-walled conference room of Sterling Capital Partners in downtown Austin. 7 men in expensive suits surrounded the table, all staring at the trembling woman in the Target clearance rack blouse. Camila Rodriguez clutched the pen like it was a weapon, her hand shaking so badly the paper beneath it rustled. Numbers swam before her eyes, numbers so large they stopped making sense. $4.7 billion. That's what the document said. $4.7 billion. Under her name. This is insane, she whispered. This has to be a mistake. I'm just his assistant. I make $42,000 a year. I can barely afford my apartment in South Austin. There's no way. Before this goes any further, if you've ever believed in taking a chance on someone, in choosing hard over comfort, please stay with us. Subscribing, liking, or sharing this story isn't about supporting a channel. It's about standing behind stories that remind us who we are. If that matters to you, even a little, stay. There's no mistake. The lead attorney, Gerald something or other, pushed the document closer. His Rolex caught the light. Mr. Sterling was very explicit in his instructions. Upon his death, 100% of his fortune transfers to you. All voting rights, all decision-making power, complete control of Sterling Capital Partners. You are now legally one of the wealthiest women in Texas. But why? Her voice cracked. I worked for him for 3 years. 3 years. We barely spoke. He'd grunt commands from his office. I'd fetch his coffee, schedule his meetings, and she stopped, tears streaming down her face. Why would he leave me everything? Why not his family? His business partners? Anyone who actually knew him? That, Gerald said carefully, is what we'd all like to know. The other men at the table exchanged glances. Hungry glances. Predatory glances. Of course, one of them said, Richard, the CFO. She remembered his name from the coffee orders. If you're uncomfortable with this responsibility, we could arrange a transfer of control for a very generous settlement, naturally, say, $50 million. You'd never have to work again, and we could continue running the company as Mr. Sterling intended. You want me to sign away $4.7 billion for $50 million? Camila's voice was small, disbelieving. It's more than you'll ever need. You're 28 years old with no business experience. This company requires expertise, connections, a skill set you simply don't possess. So you're saying I'm too stupid to manage my own inheritance? The room went silent. Camila looked down at the document, at her name typed in formal legal text, at the signature line waiting for her decision. 3 years. She'd worked for Maxwell Sterling for 3 years, barely spoken to him beyond, your 10 a.m. is here, and would you like cream in your coffee? And now he was dead, sudden heart attack at 54, 2 days ago, and apparently he'd left her everything, including the answer to a question she didn't even know she'd been asking. I need to think, she said quietly. There's a 30-day, Gerald started. I need to think. Now, alone. She stood, legs wobbling, and walked out of the conference room. Behind her, she heard the men explode into angry whispers. But she didn't care, because in her purse, tucked into her cheap pleather wallet, was something she'd found in Maxwell Sterling's desk drawer when she'd been cleaning out his office yesterday. An envelope, sealed, with her name written in his precise handwriting. Camila read this first. Before you sign anything, before you trust anyone, before you let them convince you that you don't deserve this. MS. She'd been too scared to open it yesterday. Too overwhelmed by his death, the funeral, the sudden summons to this meeting. But now, standing in the hallway outside Sterling Capital Partners' executive offices, Camila Rodriguez opened the envelope with shaking hands and read the words that would change everything. You're late. Those were the first words Maxwell Sterling ever said to Camila Rodriguez. She stood in his corner office at Sterling Capital Partners. 25th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. Furniture that probably cost more than her car. Trying not to hyperventilate. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling. There was construction on I-35, and then the parking garage was full, and I had to circle. I don't care about your excuses. I care about whether you can do the job. Sit. Camila sat in the leather chair across from his massive desk. Maxwell Sterling was exactly what she expected from a billionaire investor. Mid-50s, steel gray hair, sharp eyes that seemed to calculate your net worth with a glance, wearing a suit that cost more than her rent. Your resume says you have an MBA from UT Austin. Yes, sir. Graduated last year. Top of my class. Then why are you applying to be my assistant? This pays $42,000 a year. With your degree, you could make twice that at a consulting firm. Camila had prepared for this question, had her answer ready. But looking at Maxwell Sterling's intense gaze, the rehearsed speech died in her throat. Because I have $180,000 in student loans, she said honestly, and I've applied to 47 firms in the last 6 months. None of them hired me. I'm a first-generation college student. My parents clean houses in Miami. I don't have the connections, the network, the right background. So I'm taking what I can get. And maybe if I work for you, if I prove myself, someday I'll get a real shot. Maxwell studied her. You're honest. Refreshingly so. Is that a good thing? In this building? Probably not. Everyone here lies beautifully. He pulled out a thick folder. Here's what the job entails. You'll manage my calendar, which changes hourly. You'll handle my correspondence, which is extensive and confidential. You'll anticipate my needs before I voice them. You'll work 60-hour weeks minimum. You'll have zero personal life. You'll be invisible but indispensable. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Why should I believe you? Because I've been invisible my whole life. Might as well get paid for it. For the first time, Maxwell Sterling smiled. Small, slight, but real. You start Monday. Don't be late. Camila Rodriguez spent 3 years being the best invisible assistant Maxwell Sterling ever had. She learned his coffee order, black, 2 sugars, from the Whole Foods on 6th Street, never Starbucks. She learned his schedule, meetings until 7 p.m., then he'd stay until midnight reviewing portfolios. She learned his moods. Silence meant he was thinking. Short answers meant he was stressed. And the rare joke meant a deal had closed successfully. She learned that he lived alone in a penthouse downtown, never dated, rarely socialized, and seemed to exist solely for his work. She also learned that the other executives at Sterling Capital Partners, Richard, Thomas, David, and the rest, barely acknowledged her existence beyond demanding she fetch things. Camila, give me the Henderson files. Camila, schedule a conference call. Camila, my dry cleaning. Never, please. Never, thank you. Just commands to the invisible assistant. Maxwell was different. Not warm. He was never warm, but he noticed things. When she came in exhausted from working a weekend shift at her second job, waitressing at a diner in South Austin to make loan payments, he'd look at her and say, "Go home at 5 p.m. today? You look terrible." When her car broke down and she had to take the bus for a week, he had his driver pick her up. Can't have you late because of metro inefficiency. When her mother got sick and she had to fly to Miami for 3 days, he approved the time off without making her use PTO. Family first. Deal with it. Small things. Practical things. Never emotional. But they mattered. One night, working late on a Friday, because Camila always worked late on Fridays, having nowhere else to be, Maxwell emerged from his office at 11 p.m. and found her still at her desk. You're still here. You're still here. I own the company. What's your excuse? Nowhere else to be. He studied her for a long moment. That's sad. Welcome to the life of a broke millennial with crippling debt. You're smart, Camila. Smarter than anyone else on this floor. Why are you wasting your intelligence being an assistant? The question caught her off guard. Because smart doesn't matter if you don't have connections. I've learned that the hard way. So make connections. How? By attending galas I can't afford tickets to? Joining country clubs that wouldn't accept me anyway? This is your world, Mr. Sterling, not mine. I'm just passing through, hoping some of it rubs off. Maxwell was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm sorry. For what? That the world works this way. That talent isn't enough. That you have to be invisible to survive. It is what it is. It shouldn't be. He went back to his office. Camila sat at her desk, surprised to find tears in her eyes. That was the longest personal conversation they'd ever had. It would also be one of the last. Sometimes the people we barely notice are the ones who see us most clearly. Sometimes the person we reduce to just the assistant is a person who understands our world better than anyone in our inner circle. Maybe that's because invisibility gives you perspective. You see people as they really are when they think no one's watching. If you've ever been invisible in a room full of important people, if you've ever wondered whether your work matters when no one acknowledges it, then maybe you understand why Maxwell Sterling did what he did. Why some people see value where others see nothing at all. Maxwell Sterling died on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Camila found him. She knocked on his office door at 2:30 p.m. Unusual, because she never knocked during his analysis time, but he'd missed 2 important calls, and that wasn't like him. No answer. She knocked again. Nothing. Something felt wrong. Deeply wrong. She opened the door. Maxwell was slumped over his desk, one hand on his chest, his face gray, papers scattered everywhere, his computer screen still glowing with stock charts. Mr. Sterling. She ran to him, checked for a pulse. Weak. Thready. Call 911, she screamed to no one and everyone. She started CPR, something she learned in a certification class she'd taken years ago, never thinking she'd use it. Chest compressions. Counting. Begging. Stay with me. Please. Please stay with me. Paramedics arrived. Rushed him to Del Seaton Medical Center. Camila rode in the ambulance, holding his hand, whispering things she'd never dared say when he was conscious. You matter. You've been kind to me. You've made me feel like I wasn't invisible. Please don't leave. But Maxwell Sterling died at 4:17 p.m., surrounded by doctors and machines and the assistant who'd worked for him for 3 years without really knowing him at all. Camila sat in the hospital waiting room afterward, numb, trying to process what had happened. Richard, the CFO, showed up an hour later. No emotion, just business. We'll need you to clear out his office and prepare for the reading of the will next week. You'll be compensated for your time, of course. Then we'll find you a position with one of the other executives. I don't want a position with another executive. Suit yourself. We'll provide severance. He left. Camila sat there, tears streaming, realizing that the Sterling Capital Partners, Maxwell's death was just a logistical problem to solve. The next day, cleaning out his office as requested, Camila found the envelope in his desk drawer and the letter that would explain everything. Standing in the hallway outside the conference room, Camila read Maxwell Sterling's letter with shaking hands. Dear Camila, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Probably a heart attack. My doctor warned me years ago that the stress would kill me. I didn't listen. Classic me. By now, Gerald and the vultures have told you about the will, about the $4.7 billion I'm leaving you, about how you're now in control of Sterling Capital Partners. You're probably terrified, confused, wondering why I'd leave my entire fortune to someone I barely spoke to. Let me explain. 3 years ago, you walked into my office for an interview. You were honest, brutally, refreshingly honest, in a world where everyone lies. You told me you were invisible, that you'd take what you could get, that you just wanted a real shot. I hired you because I saw something in you that everyone else missed, brilliance disguised as desperation. For 3 years, I watched you, not in a creepy way, in an evaluating way. I watched you anticipate problems before they happened, solve logistical nightmares with elegant solutions, handle demanding executives with grace, learn the business inside and out just by being observant. You know more about Sterling Capital Partners than anyone in that building. You understand our portfolio, our strategy, our weaknesses, not because anyone taught you, but because you paid attention when everyone assumed you weren't. The executives, Richard, Thomas, David, they're good at their jobs, but they're also greedy, short-sighted, and convinced that wealth equals wisdom. They've been trying to push me toward riskier investments, faster returns, decisions that prioritize quarterly profits over long-term stability. I've been holding them back, but I'm not immortal, clearly. And without someone strong controlling the majority stake, they'll turn Sterling Capital into another aggressive hedge fund that implodes within 5 years. That's where you come in. Camila, you're smarter than all of them combined. You're also poor, or you were, which means you understand what real risk looks like. You know what it's like to have nothing. That makes you careful, thoughtful, the opposite of the reckless gamblers in suits who've never faced real consequences. I'm leaving you everything because I trust you to do what's right, not what's profitable, not what's easy. What's right? They're going to pressure you to sign over control. They'll offer you money, millions probably, to walk away. They'll tell you you're not qualified, not experienced, not worthy. Don't listen. You've been running that company from behind the scenes for 3 years. You just didn't have the title or the credit. Now you have both. Use them wisely. And Camila, thank you for 3 years of competence, integrity, and making me believe that maybe the next generation isn't completely doomed. You were never invisible to me. Maxwell Sterling. P.S. Check the bottom desk drawer of my home office. There's a USB drive labeled for Camila. It contains evidence you'll need. Trust me on this. Camila read the letter 3 times. Then 4. Each time, her hands shook less and her spine straightened more. By the 5th reading, she knew exactly what she had to do. Maxwell Sterling's penthouse was exactly as Camila remembered from the few times she delivered urgent documents. Minimalist, cold, expensive, and utterly impersonal. Except for his home office. That room was different. Books everywhere. Financial journals. Handwritten notes covering the walls. This was where Maxwell actually lived. In his analysis, his strategy, his work. Camila found the bottom desk drawer. Inside, a single USB drive with a label in Maxwell's precise handwriting. For Camila evidence, she plugged it into his computer. A folder open containing hundreds of files. Emails, audio recordings, financial documents. She clicked on a file labeled Read This First Docs. Camila, what you're about to discover will make you angry. It made me furious when I uncovered it 6 months ago. Richard, Thomas, and David have been embezzling from Sterling Capital Partners for 3 years. Small amounts from dozens of accounts, carefully hidden in legitimate transaction noise. Total theft, approximately $47 million. I have all the proof you need here. Bank records, email chains, audio recordings of them planning their next moves. I was going to turn them in to the SEC. Then I had my first heart attack 6 months ago, and I realized I was dying. The investigation would take years. The company would be destroyed by the scandal before justice was served. So I did something different. I left everything to you, because you, Camila, are now their boss. You control their futures. You decide whether they face criminal charges or simply lose their positions. You have all the power now. Use it better than I did. MS. Camila sat in Maxwell Sterling's office chair, surrounded by evidence of corporate theft, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Rage. Not because they'd stolen money, though that was infuriating, but because they looked at her every single day, dismissed her as just the assistant, treated her like she was furniture, and never once considered that she might matter, that she might see them, that she might become the person who decided their fate. "Oh, gentlemen," she whispered to the empty room, You have no idea what's coming. Power doesn't corrupt people. It reveals who they already were. The ones who abuse power when they have it were always going to be abusers. They just finally got the opportunity. Maybe that's why the truly dangerous people aren't the overtly villainous. They're the ones who smile while stabbing you in the back, who reduce you to nothing while congratulating themselves for their success. If you've ever watched someone underestimate you, dismiss you, treat you like you didn't matter, and then had the chance to prove them catastrophically wrong, then maybe you understand the fire burning in Camila right now. Why some moments of power aren't about revenge. They're about justice. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Camila Rodriguez walked into Sterling Capital Partners wearing a new suit, still from Target, but black, professional, and most importantly, confident. She'd spent the weekend reviewing everything. Maxwell's files, the company portfolio, the embezzlement evidence, and most crucially, her rights as majority shareholder. She was done being invisible. The receptionist looked surprised to see her. Camila, I thought you'd schedule an emergency board meeting. 10 a.m. Mandatory attendance. I don't have authority to. I do. I'm the majority shareholder. Schedule it. At 10 a.m., she walked into the conference room where, 1 week ago, they tried to pressure her into signing away her inheritance. Richard, Thomas, David, and the other executives sat around the table, looking annoyed at being summoned. Camila, Richard said with barely concealed condescension, I thought we'd agreed you needed time to think. I've thought. I'm keeping everything. Silence. Excuse me? I'm keeping my controlling stake in Sterling Capital Partners. I'm assuming my position as majority shareholder and taking an active role in company decision-making. Richard laughed. Actually laughed. With all due respect, you have no experience. I have 3 years of experience running this company from behind the scenes while you all took credit. I know our portfolio better than anyone at this table. I understand our clients, our strategy, our weaknesses. She pulled out a folder. I also understand our embezzlement problem. The color drained from Richard's face. What are you? $47 million. Stolen over 3 years. Small amounts from client accounts, hidden in transaction noise. Very clever. Maxwell figured out 6 months ago. He left me all the evidence. She slid documents across the table. Bank records, email chains, audio recordings. This is you can't, Thomas sputtered. I can, and I have 2 options. Option 1, I turn this over to the SEC. You face criminal charges, prison time, complete destruction of your careers and reputations. Option 2, you resign immediately. You forfeit any severance or stock options. You sign NDAs agreeing never to work in finance again. And you repay the stolen funds within 6 months. That's extortion. David shouted. No, that's mercy. Maxwell wanted to destroy you. I'm offering you a way out. She leaned forward. But if you refuse, if you fight me, if you try to undermine me in any way, I will bury you. I have billions of dollars, the best lawyers money can buy, and absolutely nothing to lose. You have careers, families, reputations. Choose wisely. The room was silent. Richard's face had gone from red to gray. You're bluffing. Am I? Camila pulled out her phone, dialed. Hello. This is Camila Rodriguez, majority shareholder of Sterling Capital Partners. I'd like to file a complaint with the SEC regarding embezzlement by... Wait. Richard's voice cracked. Wait. We'll resign. All of you? Thomas and David nodded, defeated. Smart choice. You have until end of business today to clear your offices. Your resignation letters will cite pursuing other opportunities. I'll expect repayment plans by end of week. They stood, broken, and filed out without another word. Camila sat alone in the conference room, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. From invisible assistant to the woman who controlled a fortune. Not because of nepotism, Not because of connections. Because someone finally saw her value and bet everything on it. The Whole Foods on 6th Street in Austin. 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Camila Rodriguez stood in the coffee aisle, debating between brands, when a voice behind her said, "Black coffee, 2 sugars." That's what he always ordered, right? She turned. A man in his late 30s, kind eyes, wearing UT Austin Medical Center scrubs. "I'm sorry, Maxwell Sterling. I was his cardiologist. I heard you inherited his company. Wanted to say," he hesitated, "he talked about you. Not much, because Maxwell didn't talk much, period. But in our last appointment, he mentioned his assistant. Said she was the smartest person in the building, and no one saw it but him." Camila's eyes filled. "He said that?" "He also said if anything happened to him, you'd know what to do with the company." Guess he was right. The doctor extended his hand. "I'm Andrew Chun, by the way. Sorry for the random grocery store ambush." Camila Rodriguez. "And it's okay. I think I needed to hear that." They stood in the coffee aisle making small talk about Maxwell, about the company, about the insanity of the past 6 months. Andrew was funny, genuine, and notably didn't ask about her net worth or try to pitch an investment idea. "Can I buy you coffee?" he asked finally. "Real coffee, not from Whole Foods." "Are you asking me on a date, Dr. Chin?" "I'm asking the woman who just took down 3 corrupt executives and restructured a multi-billion-dollar company if she has time for coffee with a guy who spends most days in scrubs covered in questionable fluids." Despite everything, Camila laughed. Actually laughed. That's either the worst pickup line or the most honest one I've ever heard. I'm going with honest. Maxwell always said honesty was underrated. He did, didn't he? She smiled. "Okay, Dr. Chen. Coffee. But I'm buying." "You're a billionaire. You're always buying." Fair point. Sterling Capital Partners annual meeting. Miami Beach Convention Center. Camila Rodriguez stood at the podium, looking out at 200 investors, employees, and media representatives. 1 year ago, she'd been an invisible assistant making $42,000 a year. Now she was CEO of a $5.2 billion investment firm, up from $4.7 billion, because apparently she was good at this. When Maxwell Sterling died, many of you questioned his decision to leave me his company, she began. You said I was too young, too inexperienced, too much of an outsider to understand how this world works. She paused, smiled slightly. You were right about one thing. I didn't understand how this world works. And that's precisely why Maxwell chose me. Because I wasn't trapped in the same thinking that says profit matters more than people. That quarterly earnings are more important than sustainable growth. That success means maximizing shareholder value at any cost. Maxwell taught me, without ever explicitly saying it, that real power isn't about how much money you have. It's about what you do with it. So here's what we've done at Sterling Capital Partners this year. We've invested in 15 minority-owned businesses that traditional firms overlooked. We've created a scholarship fund for first-generation college students pursuing business degrees. We've restructured our employee compensation to include profit sharing for everyone, not just executives. And you know what? We're more profitable than ever, because investing in people isn't just the right thing to do. It's good business. The applause was thunderous. After the meeting, dozens of people wanted to talk to her, pitch ideas, request meetings. The same people who'd ignored her for 3 years now desperate for her attention. Camila handled them all with grace, then slipped away to the hotel balcony overlooking the Miami beach where she'd grown up visiting as a kid. There you are. Andrew appeared beside her, holding 2 champagne glasses. They'd been dating for 6 months, slow, careful, real. He still worked 80-hour weeks as a cardiologist. She still worked insane hours rebuilding Sterling Capital. But they made it work. Hiding from your adoring public, he teased. Just taking a moment, thinking about Maxwell, wishing he could see this. I think he can. Andrew handed her a glass. To Maxwell Sterling. who saw what everyone else missed. To Maxwell Sterling, who gave me a fortune I didn't know I could control. They clinked glasses, and Camila looked out at the Miami sunset, thinking about the journey from invisible assistant to CEO, about being seen when you're used to being ignored, about the responsibility that comes with power, and about the fact that sometimes the most important thing you can do is use your privilege to open doors for people still waiting for their shot, just like someone once did for you. 2 years after Maxwell Sterling's death, Camila Rodriguez walked into the Publix on Brickell Avenue in Miami. She was in town visiting her parents when she noticed a young woman in the job application section, early 20s, tired eyes, wearing scrubs with Jackson Memorial Hospital embroidered on them, filling out an application for a stock clerk. Something about her reminded Camila of herself 5 years ago. "Excuse me," Camila said. "Are you applying here?" The girl looked up, startled. "Yeah, I need a second job. Med school loans are killing me. I work nights at the hospital, so I thought maybe stocking shelves during the day." She stopped. "Why do you care?" "Because I used to be you, working multiple jobs, drowning in debt, invisible to everyone who mattered. And now I run a company in Austin, and I'm looking for an executive assistant." The girl laughed bitterly. "Lady, I don't have qualifications for that. I'm just a phlebotomist trying to survive." "You're smart. I can tell. You're desperate, but you're still fighting. That's exactly the qualification I need." Camila pulled out a business card. "The job pays $85,000 a year, full benefits. And if you're as observant and hardworking as I think you are, you'll learn more about business in 1 year than most people learn in a decade." "Why would you offer me that? You don't even know me." "Because someone once gave me a shot when I had nothing, and I believe in paying it forward." She smiled. "The question is, are you brave enough to take it?" The girl stared at the business card. At the name, Camila Rodriguez, CEO, Sterling Capital Partners. "Holy shit. You're the woman who inherited that billions." "I'm the assistant who became a CEO because someone saw past my circumstances to my potential. And I'm offering you the same chance." I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Then show up Monday morning in Austin, ready to work the hardest year of your life. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be the one offering someone a shot." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. God, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much." Camila handed her another card with travel arrangements and a contact email. "See you Monday. And by the way, what's your name?" "Isabella. Isabella Flores." "Welcome to Sterling Capital Partners, Isabella. Try not to be late on your first day. Sometimes the greatest power we have isn't in accumulating wealth. It's in using whatever we have to lift someone else up. Sometimes being seen when you were invisible isn't just about your success. It's about making sure the next person doesn't have to fight as hard as you did. Maybe that's what legacy really means. Not what you build, but who you help build. If this story reminded you that everyone deserves a shot, that being underestimated doesn't mean being worthless, that the people dismissed as just the assistant might actually be running a whole show from behind the scenes, then maybe you understand why Camila's story matters. Why seeing people, really seeing them, can change everything. Not just for them. For all of us. The office of Sterling Capital Partners. Corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Austin. Isabella Flores sat at the CEO's desk, reviewing quarterly reports. Camila Rodriguez had stepped down 2 years ago to start a foundation focused on financial literacy and business opportunities for underserved communities. Isabella had been promoted to CEO at 29, youngest in company history, just like Camila had been. "Ms. Flores." The new assistant knocked. "Young, nervous, brilliant. Yes, Marcus? Your 10 a.m. is here. Thank you. And Marcus, you were right about the Henderson portfolio. Your analysis was spot on. Make sure that's in writing for the board meeting." The assistant's face lit up. Really? You're crediting me? Of course. You did the work. You get the credit. Isabella smiled. One thing I learned from Camila Rodriguez. The people in support roles are often the smartest people in the building. It's our job to make sure they get recognized for it. On the wall behind Isabella's desk hung a photograph. Camila Rodriguez and Maxwell Sterling, the only picture ever taken of them together, captured by accident during a company event 3 years before his death. They weren't looking at the camera, were barely even standing near each other. But something about the image captured their dynamic perfectly. Camille in the background, competent and invisible. Maxwell in the foreground, powerful and alone. Two people who needed each other more than either of them knew. One who'd seen potential where everyone else saw nothing. One who'd proven that being underestimated was just opportunity in disguise. And together, they'd built something that mattered more than money. They'd built a legacy of seeing people, of giving chances, of believing that the assistant organizing your calendar might actually be the one who deserves to run the world. If this story touched you in any way, if it made you feel something, pause for a moment, or see life a little differently, please don't let it end here. These stories take heart, time, and care to create, and your support is what keeps them alive. Subscribing, liking, or sharing isn't just a click. It's a quiet way of saying this mattered. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, please stay with us.